Hello, everybody, and welcome to round 13 of the 2025 ARC Formula One World Championship. We are just getting started here for qualifying as we have Cameron Lopez on the camera, last week's winner, crossing the line to begin his first flying lap. We'll ride along with him through this first sequence and throughout talk a little bit about these stories for this week. Firstly, the weather at this Canadian circuit looking pretty good this race. Light clouds all the way through, no real risk of rain. Obviously, on approximate, anything can happen, as is how we run with our regulations and weather. But with that said, looking like a very clear and expected race in this one. We got a bit of a lag spike there. Cameron Lopez did win last week's Portuguese Grand Prix, and as last week's winner, he actually whittled his points deficit down to just 31 to the points leader, becoming the lead driver of the two Vision 47 Mercedes cars. Maxime Van Everbeck not here this weekend in that other Sauber. This will be his third missed race of the season, and it will be a pretty consequential one by the look of it, with a small field, meaning everybody here will score points. Now, what that means for George Knight or Cameron Lopez is that they can effectively go to within, either in Cameron's case, 6 points, or in George Knight's case, 16 points, if they were to win the race. So this could be huge for the two of these drivers to get themselves back into the points battle. And of the drivers here, you would expect those two Mercedes are going to be the two to beat. George Knight has been looking for a turnaround for quite a while, as we know. We've discussed in previous weeks as we head into this race. We'll just take a look over his previous last little downfall of weeks here. Kicked off his season with a start in China with a first, then a second, 18th after a crash in Singapore, but then returned to a first, and then first at Monaco, and then a third and a third at Spain and Great Britain. And you could argue that Great Britain he would have won if not for wing damage. From there, it's been downhill. He's been on a consistent slide down the field. 12th place, then a 14th place, both DNFs, back up to 4th, but not even a podium at the Netherlands, and then another DNF in Monza. And to really add salt to the wound, he DNF'd last week in Portugal as well. So 4 DNFs in 5 races, not a great one for him, but he can still will himself into this with just a little bit of patience and a little bit of luck. This has been the story of the season. Not a consistent season for anybody, but a lack thereof for everybody. And that lack of consistency has given rise to one of the most unpredictable championship seasons we've had in ARC. The most winning driver in the league currently only sits on 3 victories, despite us having 12 races under our belt. 2 drivers have 3 victories, 2 drivers have 2, and from there we have some pop-in reserves and single race winners, such as Milan van der Linden and Aaron Clark, who have picked up victories here and there. It's been quite a season. We'll pick up George Knight here on an outlap, really ride along with him and see what he can do. He needs a good race. He needs a good start. He needs a good finish. Perhaps George Knight's biggest weakness in this season has been his consistency. And that consistency is something that once you lose your rhythm, very easy to lose that consistency and not be able to get it back. It's like a switch that once it gets turned off, you really struggle to get it turned back on. Through the final chicane, just by the Wall of Champions here, and across the line. And he begins his lap into turn 1. Very, very nice looking turn 1 sequence there, just about where you want to angle the car. Get it as straight as you possibly can on the exit of turn 2 there, and then as wide as you can on the entry to 3, so that you can take as much track as humanly possible through that chicane. Now you want to get all the way back over to the right-hand side of the track to make the track as wide as possible so you can just sweep around this corner. Then you want to exit wide, but then immediately go back shallow to get those tenths back, since we are talking about a curved straight here. This chicane, not an easy one. It's got quite a sharp entry, but a very shallow exit, which makes it deceivingly tight. Now through the hairpin. George Knight now enabling his ERS. He'll be fully on the power here. DRS flap open into this final chicane. This is what you have to nail to put down a lap worthy of a pole position. Will he nail it? He doesn't invalidate it. Let's see how this lap goes. It is going to be provisional pole, a 108.276, nearly a second up on his teammate and 0.4 up on his nearest challenger. Cameron Lopez back on a lap now. He's invalidated. Will he go again for another lap? Is this a quick lap? It seems fast, but not the fastest so far through turns 1 and 2. But he is full attack. I can tell through there as his rear was just squabbling around. He's all the way to the left there. Slight lockup. Pushing. As it stands, I think Cameron Lopez will be on for that P2 or 3 slot. This lap not looking incredible, but he can pick it up in the final chicane. There's a lot to be gained there with full commitment. And Cameron Lopez into the pits. As expected there. Not the lap you would have thought. What we do have, though, is Oliver James pushing it here. Pushing it to the line. And will he beat George Knight? No, he does not. Doesn't even improve on his best lap time. Jamie Cavagnini here in P3. The Aston Martin on a hot lap himself. And the championship leader, Takubi, has joined the session. Things have now gotten more difficult for George Knight and Cameron Lopez in first and fourth in this championship battle. Down the casino straight here and into the pits for Jamie Cavagnini. Cameron Lopez back on an outlap here. We'll see what he can do. We will wait and see if Maxime Van Averbeek Takubi gets added to the list. He sits in the pit right now, but in his Sauber, he has been added to the session. And things are about to get spicier than they were looking before. Absolutely. Things have gotten tougher here for these two Vision 47 Mercedes drivers with the addition of the NFR Sauber driven by Maxime Van Averbeek. The driver having 3 wins already this season. Should arguably be 4, one he gave away at Belgium. And Cameron Lopez begins his lap. Let's ride along with him here through the Virage Senna. Turn 1. Hugging the curb, going as fast as he possibly can through here. Let's ride along via that camera. Take as much track as you can through there. That curb is slow and really, really smooth, easy to use. You want to get as far right as you possibly can here. Get just to that apex curb, accelerate almost over it, and get as close to that wall as you can. Now you start making your way back to the left without going too far over, so you can angle yourself back here into this chicane. Now we head down into the hairpin, known in French as l'épingle. I know it's not actually said like that, but man, it is funny. DRS on, getting an absolutely god-tier pull here from the Sauber. Sauber not blocking, and now it's all on Cameron Lopez to not invalidate, and he doesn't. What a chicane from him. Can this be the pole lap? No, it cannot. He's still 3/10 off, even with that absolute pull he just got. And you know who that is riding along just ahead of us? That is Maxime Van Averbeek, who is now on a hot lap. He's going to go for pole this time. Immediately, you could tell where the extra speed was in that chicane. He opts for a little bit more curb than Cameron Lopez through there. Didn't seem to be too much slower or faster through that chicane, but noticeably quicker in the one prior to that. Turns 8 and 9 here. Now headed back down to the hairpin. Braking just where the grass starts. He went purple in that last sector. Can he maintain pole position, or can George Knight maintain pole position, or will Maxime Van Averbeek steal it out from under him with only 4 minutes left? Oh, he hits the wall. Will it be enough? Only P3 for Maxime Van Averbeek, who made a pretty massive mistake there. An un-Takubi-like mistake. He's going again, but he doesn't have a lot of overtake, so he appears to just be messing around now on the way back to the pit. Everybody either in the pit or just starting an outlap. Ryan Messer now. Ryan Messer, an interesting driver in our list, as he currently sits in P7 in the standings. Made a lot of starts. Didn't start Portugal, I don't believe, but beyond the non-start at Portugal and the non-start at Spain, has been here for every other race and has shown vast improvement from race 1 to race 2 to race 3 and so on. And that culminated in a P2 finish at Monaco in a race that, you know, we would probably prefer to forget, but Ryan Messer did great in that one, put a lot of points on the board. And then from there has started to really show himself to be a solid pair of hands. 10th, 7th, 6th, 7th. In this race, he's going to be trying to get one of those again. Just keep adding to that points total. He's on 53 right now as he starts his hot lap here in the Sauber. And when will we see cars start to roll out of the pit? And it's an invalidation for Ryan Messer at the chicane. We're starting to see cars just trundle down the pit wall here. Both Mercedes now on an outlap, one by one. These will be ones to watch. George Knight will try and go better on his lap. Cameron Lopez will be right behind, trying to go better. That will also allow us to watch the Haas of Alexander Lopez, both Aston Martins who sit back there, the McLaren of Oliver James, who's been a threat in qualifying nearly every time he shows up in some way or another, and finally Takubi, who sits in that pack as well, going for pole. It's both Mercedes bunch up here. Here comes George Knight, who's just invalidated his lap time. But will it carry? It will not. George Knight into turn one and the Virage Senna here around turn one, keeping it as tight as he possibly can on the middle of the corner, but not so much on the exit. You cannot on the exit there. Now washing all the way right so he can snap back left. That's more curb than we've seen any other driver take so far, but it will straighten your line out. Very good stop there from the British driver. Drifting right so he can make a sweeping right here coming from the left into this deceivingly tough chicane with only 22 seconds left in qualifying. This is the lap. Gets on the brakes just after that grass spot here, perfectly on the apex. Gets to the accelerator as fast as he possibly can, just to the curb there, and now he wants to keep as straight and tight a line as he possibly can here through the final chicane. He wants to get as close to the Wall of Champions or the Quebec wall as he can possibly get without hitting it, and he does it. That is a perfect final corner. What will the other Vision 47 driver do? George Knight improves on his lap. Cameron Lopez does not. A 108.008. That's going to be tough for Takubi to beat. Takubi now, Maxime Van Averbeek down this final straightaway. He's following the McLaren of Oliver James through this final chicane. Oliver James doesn't improve his lap. Maxime Van Averbeek doesn't improve his lap. And Lewis Huchen doesn't improve his lap either. The only other driver still out on the track, Brian Mezer, who will be trying, but it's looking more and more like, as we see that the Sauber here has actually invalidated his lap, it is looking like a George Knight pole position, something we have not seen in many, many races at this point. George Knight's last pole position came at the early stage of the season. Yeah, George Knight's last pole position was round 3 around Suzuka, a race that Maxime Van Averbeek won. Will history repeat itself with a Maxime Van Averbeek? A Maxime Van Averbeek win on a George Knight pole position. What a finish to that qualifying session. Incredibly enjoyable to watch, absolutely. And this is going to be a big, big celebration for George Knight, who needs a big, big race to put himself back in the hunt. And he needs a bit of a mistake from the Sauber driver as well. But those are not easy to come by. Maxime Van Averbeek mistakes. And the formation lap, as the lights go out here, George Knight will lead the way in this race. We see a varying strategy here. We'll take a look at the tire compounds and how they seem to look here. We'll get that detail here. Just show me that tire compound. We got a hard for George Knight, a medium for Oliver James. Hards down the board beyond that, except for Alexander Lopez, Finn Baker, and Aidan McCarthy. Take a look for Oliver James to take an early shot at the race lead. I do believe that he's going to try that immediately. This will be a one-stop race for sure, as I think there was some contact there, and that may end up with both of these guys getting sent to the grid. I hope not, though. I always think formation lap silliness can be avoided as these drivers work to keep these tires warm on what's looking like a more and more cool day. The evergreen trees lingering over this track on the Ile Notre Dame in Montreal. Drivers warming their tires, doing things you could not do in real life to get those tires warm. And George Knight falls to 5th somehow. I'm not quite sure how. Drivers begin to line up now. And here they come. George Knight putting some heat into his tires as the leader. Angling himself in an odd way, but will it be the right way? Will it be the way that gets him the race victory? Angles himself toward the McLaren drivers. We have 2 more drivers in the back of the pack making their way to the end of the queue. Very far behind. The stewards may want to take a look at that, as there is a 10 car length rule. And the lights are headed on. That's 4, 5. And they're out. The lights are out. Here comes George Knight. He covers off Oliver James right away, despite the softer tire compound of Oliver James. Oliver James tries to hang it around the outside. He can't make it stick, but now he has the inside line into the chicane and the softer tire. Will George Knight be able to defend? It's looking unlikely, but he tucks into the line, and George Knight now has the preferred line. Things are pretty tame here in this opening sector of the race. Not a whole lot of beating and banging as we've settled into a line pretty quickly, and none of the leaders have fallen down the pack in any unpredictable manner. Plenty of clean driving through the pack. This 35 lapper will surely have a lot of drama on a track this small, but there doesn't appear to be much in terms of drama on this first lap. Maxime Van Averbeek, we just saw him peek down the inside of Oliver James. And Oliver James now being the other peeker here, peeking down the outside of George Knight and making the overtake. But Maxime Van Averbeek will not follow him through, as Oliver James will lead the first lap of the 2025A Canadian Grand Prix, the home Grand Prix circuit of the League Auto Racing Connected. Cameron Lopez up to 3rd, taking advantage of that small error from Maxime Van Averbeek, making an overtake that was never going to happen on George Knight. Van Averbeek fell back, and that allowed Cameron Lopez to pounce. Alexander Lopez hanging to the back of Maxime Van Averbeek as well, with Ryan Messer and Jamie Caminiti right there. Now George Knight tucked up to the back of Oliver James. Can he pass and get ahead while these hard tires are still at a disadvantage to the mediums? Yes, he can. He gets it done. Swinging into the chicane, and there he goes. He hits the wall. Will that be a track warning penalty? Might be worth taking a look at the race director there. Do we have any incidents here? Exceeded track limits. We have collisions, exceeded track limits. Only collisions, no exceeding track limits for any of the top drivers currently. All coming from the back with the exception of, you could say, Jamie Cavallini and Alexander Lopez, both struggling with it. George Knight still with that fastest lap now, leading Oliver James. Oh, and a half spin there for Oliver James sends him back. Oh, down the... Oh my goodness. That was incredible. How close they were together there. Oh, Maxime Van Averbeek gets pushed into the back of by Alexander Lopez, who goes into the back of Cameron Lopez. And Oliver James falling down the pack, giving a 1.5-second lead to George Knight. Now we have a big, not a big dive. He tucks back in. I was thinking it might have been looking like one there for a moment, but now we're going to see Oliver James see if he can make a move on Alexander Lopez. We know he'll be faster. This pack is tight. And they are not going to give it up easily. We know that that second place car is going to only going to be hard to pass because he's got a teammate up ahead. These two are probably going to be helping each other to get that lead out for George Knight. And down the inside, Oliver James, who's now going to make that move on Alexander Lopez, but it will not stick because Lopez has the draft. He has the slipstream. Now Oliver James back in the slipstream of Alexander Lopez. He pulls out. Will he make the move into the chicane? He tries to. And not quite. Maxime Van Averbeek, a 3-second time penalty. You don't see that from him often, but he does indeed have a time penalty. And the gap now behind Oliver James getting even closer. Ryan Messer only 0.4 behind. And then Adler Norris only another, well, now he's a little further behind as he's fallen back after a slight excursion through the grass with a 3-second penalty of his own. Back up to the front here. Cameron Lopez trying to do his best to run back down Maxime Van Averbeek. The gap is 2 seconds from Van Averbeek to George Knight. So George Knight would theoretically need to keep a 3-second gap between him and Van Averbeek if Van Averbeek were to pass. But still 30 laps left. That's still not a death sentence for Van Averbeek. He can still win this race. And now Cameron Lopez picks up a 3-second time penalty. Alexander Lopez picks up a 3-second time penalty. Time penalties for all around here. This is a hard track when it comes to time penalties. That much is for certain. We just listen to the roar of the engines. The field has filtered into a bit of a line here. Pardon my yawning. Bit of a conga line here. That gap staying tight at 2 seconds, but there's still plenty of action to come. Don't get my lack of caffeine yawns confused with yawns of boredom, because this race still has a lot to offer. Cameron Lopez now back tight to the back of Maxime Van Averbeck. Gap was 0.8. It was down to 4 there briefly, now up to 6, but he's hanging tight. George Knight just kind of pedaling into the distance a little bit, but still losing a bit of time back to Maxime Van Averbeck. And in this middle sector, it's pretty clear to see Van Averbeck has the legs over Cameron Lopez. As Ryan Messer makes the move on Oliver James. Ryan Messer up to P4, and oh, a 10-second penalty for George Knight. What has happened? He's off the track. He's hit the wall. What's happened? What has happened to George Knight? I did not notice. It looked like... Was it a mechanical issue? What has happened to George Knight? We have to get some answers here. As we interview George Knight, trying to get a bit of an answer as to what just happened. Leading on lap 9 with a 2-second lead to Maxime Van Averbeck. His wheel disconnected and monitor turned off in unison, leading to a 10-second time penalty and the car going straight into the wall. It is not George Knight's season. Oh my goodness. I cannot believe that. What did last season's champion do to deserve the luck he has had this season? It's almost unbelievable. You could make a case it's unbelievable. As we stare straight down the barrel of another Maxime Van Averbeck victory off of the back of a George Knight disaster class. The only driver in this race that won't score points as well. That has got to hurt. That has got to rattle. He will be almost out of championship contention, if not outright out of championship contention after this turn of events. He really, really needed a good event, and it did not happen for George Knight this week. The Vision 47 hopes and dreams at this point, it's fair to say, rest exclusively on the back of Cameron Lopez here, with only 5 races to go after this at the Miami International Autodrome, the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez in Mexico, the Autodromo Jose Carlos Pache at Interlagos, and the Yas Marina Circuit at Abu Dhabi, and then finally the Jeddah Corniche Circuit and Saudi Arabia. Those 5 circuits, we'll be looking at a near 75 point gap for George Knight to try and get himself back into the championship fight, while Cameron Lopez has a little less to complain about here, with only a 31 point gap, and at max, if he hangs tight here, it would only go up to 38. So season definitely turning around here for Cameron Lopez, and has gone in the other direction. And Lopez, he's had his own trials and tribulations with wheel issues this season. Really makes you wonder where these two drivers would be without the issues, but as they say, that is racing. got to battle with the balls and the strikes, I suppose. Now we have Jamie Cavallini getting past Adler Norris. Makes me wonder when we will see our first round of pit stops from those medium runners. Another 3-second penalty here for Maxime Van Averbeek, but Cameron Lopez still outside of that 3-second gap. Maxime Van Averbeek just too fast. He's just too quick. Quick, quiet, and under control. This driver reminds me a lot of the, well, as under control as he has been in this race, but quick and quiet anyway reminds me a lot of Alex Meath, the initial two-time ARC Formula One champion, Season 1 and Season 2. That is a driver who, no matter what, had always just managed to find the measure over his opponents. Of course, he leads, or led, up until Mikey de Jong passed him in total ARC Formula One race wins. He did lead this championship up until just 2 years ago in total ARC Formula One victories. Alex Meath did. That was that sits in the 20s, I believe 22 for Alex Meath, and you have to wonder how many seasons would it take Maxime Van Averbeek to hit a number like that, because this season this could be number 4, but he's had a lot go wrong this season. He disconnected while leading at Portugal last week. He tried to give the time back at Spa and ended up dropping to 4th instead of 2nd. And that arguably should have been a race victory for him without that happening, because he was not entitled to give that back. So we're looking at, and Silverstone, where he got taken out on the first lap. I mean, while you can't really weigh Silverstone, you got to wonder how many seasons would it take for Maxime Van Averbeek to go down as potentially the greatest ARC Formula One driver we've had in terms of achievements? Because we may be looking at that driver. The driver looking at bringing Nuclear Fusion Racing their first ever ARC Formula One World Championship as well. A long-time ARC team, one that you might have thought would never get it done, but they're getting it done this season so far. Cameron Lopez now 7 seconds behind. That gap just increasing. As now it seems we're getting to the part of the race where the other drivers beg for a safety car to put themselves back into contention. Corner cut penalties for everybody this go around here. Oliver James now on a hard tire. He started on the medium, so he's obviously pitted already. Yep, with a 19-second gap to the next car ahead. He leads the cars that have pitted. I didn't even catch these guys headed into the pits, but they did. Aiden McCarthy having a fairly miserable race back here in the back of the pack. Just kind of driving along, getting some... He'll get a point, and that will be a successful day with how the start of this race has gone for him. Now Oliver James picks up his first 3-second time penalty, leaving Ryan Messer as the only car on track currently without a time penalty. Another impressive showing of his just ability to keep it clean. Or at least keep it clean longer than anyone else. The two drivers ahead now do battle into the chicane here. Jamie Cabanini up to third. Who will end up on the podium at the end of this race is the question here, I believe. And it's looking interesting for sure. What I'm finding very interesting is the way that Jamie Cabanini hasn't actually fallen off of Cameron Lopez. And we have a yellow flag in Sector 1. That's the Haas. He's missing a front wing. He's hit the wall. And it appears to be quite hard, but no safety car, not even a VSC here for that. Arguably should have been, considering everything. Parked backwards in the track, in one of the fastest areas of the track. But, yeah. And now Aidan McCarthy will have to make his way around here. Make his way around this damaged car. Down the inside in the chicane. And good as done here. That car is not driving well. That Haas. As Adler Norris enters the pit, lap 17. Another 3-second time penalty here for Oliver James. Just not the showing he needed, but he does have that gap down to 16 seconds. Is that fresh tire really helping that much? That is the question. He certainly won't come out ahead of Takubi, but he may come out just behind Cameron Lopez if he keeps up the pace here. Cameron Lopez now with a 12.6 second gap to the leader of Maxime Van Averbeek. Van Averbeek's driving ability is just what one might call poetry in motion. Just take a look here. As close as he can possibly get to those limits without just pushing them. Without like, or even you could say pushing them without pushing past them. Although that one may have well been out of track limits, but I mean, very smooth driving. He's always using as much of the track as he possibly can. He gets over much further to the right there than the others. Right there, taking a lot of curb, but it works. It's working for him. Taking a lot more of the corner exit there than a lot of the other drivers were too. Cameron Lopez did pit last time. He comes out just behind Oliver James, but on a much fresher tire. And we have a car stopped and backwards in Sector 1 at the Virage Senna, but he continues along with no further problems. Aiden McCarthy just going for a decent points day here, and hopefully that can come to him with no further issues. Right behind him, you'll have the Haas of Alexander Lopez, who is clearly quicker, but battling the fact that he had to pit for a new front wing. We have another pitter here. That's Jamie Cavannini, who falls to 6th, but he will probably pick up a couple positions here on pit exit. No, he will not. He's too far behind coming out of the pit exit. You've got to love this pit exit. What a wonderful pit exit, one of the best on the calendar, and really gives people in the pits a chance to battle back. But he does come out a little too far behind to do such a thing. And now it's an NFR 1-2. Maxime Van Averbeek leading Ryan Messer. Van Averbeek into the pits this time with a 17-second gap. If Ryan Messer wants to pit this time, he sure as hell can too. Van Averbeek now hitting his marks into the pits. The car is dirty. Look at that car. It's been off the track. It's had some excursions, but it's doing its thing. And now, let's watch Ryan Messer, who makes his way into the pits as well. Take a look at his car. How dirty is this Sauber? As he swings into the pits now. Looking a little better than the other one, but very nice from him. Ryan Messer now will rejoin with Jamie Cavannini, and these two on medium tires will be going to try and fight their way up through the pack and get to the back of those McLarens and Mercedes of Cameron Lopez here with a 10.5 second gap. And we have the Haas off again. It's been a miserable race for Alexander Lopez. 18 seconds off the next car. Just too many mistakes here for the British driver. Very unhappy with the balance of the car by the look of it too. worth pointing that out, I believe. So what I'm interested in seeing is the gap between Jamie Cavannini and Adler Norris in P4 and P5, and seeing how that kind of establishes itself over the next 12 laps. Because as it stands right now, Adler Norris, obviously you see he's just set the fastest lap. But when that Aston Martin crosses the line and is fighting with Ryan Messer, which Ryan Messer actually just passed, it makes me wonder. Jamie Cavannini appears to have made a fairly large mistake there, as he went very, very wide and dropped a really long way back behind Ryan Messer. So that gap that I was just about to talk about that I was interested in, that seems to be a little less important and imperative to the race at large here. Two McLarens doing battle here, Adler Norris and Oliver James, these East Coast racing cars. They're fighting for the points that they can get in this season's championship standings. Obviously, Jackson Altman was the big contributor earlier in the season with his points tally, including and then obviously Oliver Knott joining as well and adding a bunch of points to that tally. Oliver James currently sitting on 22 points, while Jackson Altman sits on 37, and Oliver Knott sits on 80, but only one of those race wins, so 25 points was with this McLaren team. But with all that said, Oliver Knott and Jackson Altman and stuff now have their other little lifter here to the team's point standings, that being Adler Norris, who we're watching right now. He put another 18 in the bank for this team last time out in Portugal, keeping the McLaren team in the fight for this P3 battle in the constructors, just ahead of Wildcard Autosport. Um, they currently sit on 140 points over the 113, I believe, that Wildcard Autosport has in fourth. As I just talked him all up, he heads into the pits and retires. Our second retiree of the race, this one obviously a commentator's curse. And we get down in the final 10 laps of this race. Those 10 laps will be bookended here, or started, I guess. You flip open the page, book started by Maxime Van Averbeek with a 12.4 second gap here, ahead of Cameron Lopez. Lopez, last week's winner. He sits P2, looking to get his fourth win of the season, but it's looking less and less likely as Maxime Van Averbeek looks for his fourth as well. Oliver James, P3, just hanging with Cameron Lopez. These two are on slightly offset tires, but that tire is harder for Oliver James and may end up hindering him early. Maybe it'll help at the end of the stint. Just 10 laps to go now in this Canadian Grand Prix. We've had some phenomenal Canadian Grand Prix throughout the years. And a safety car could make this one as well, but right now we currently sit awaiting another Maxime Van Averbeek domination. Something that we don't go into weekends fully expecting, but when they happen, man, they are dominant. Our nearest battle on track, obviously, right here in front of us. Cameron Lopez versus Oliver James for that P2 spot. Cameron Lopez needs it for the championship fight, just in case. But Oliver James will not roll over and just let him have it. He's sitting on only 22 points, so 18 would double his tally, putting him all the way up to 40. Battle has a car closing in ahead of them, but it is just the lapper of Alexander Lopez. Blinking in and out of ghosting mode as the leaders approach. Getting down to 6 laps to go this time. These drivers battling away for that second place spot on this track. We approach 5 to go this time. Let's check in on Maxime Van Averbeek crossing the start-finish line. Sorry, 6 to go this time. I cannot do the math here, as it turns out. Maxime Van Averbeek just ever so slightly pushing, but not by much. You don't need to by much when you've built up a 14.5-second lead over the last 30 laps. You have a couple time penalties, but you know your competitors, they have them too, and they might be worse in a lot of scenarios, as Oliver James gets past Cameron Lopez here for that P2 spot. Quietly, Ryan Messer has had a very, very good race, and he is up to 4th. Let's take a look at the race director here. Take a look at the at these exceeded track limits. Corner cutting for Oliver James. There's the George Knight retirement and DNF, terminal damage. I cannot believe that wasn't a safety car, truthfully. A lot of track limits penalties here, but mainly from 3 people, so. But I'm just watching those Takubi ones. He's got another 2 warnings here, then he picked another 3 seconds up. How many does he have now? Takubi, that's 3, 6. He's up to 9 seconds. Now we gotta ask ourselves, how many does Cameron Lopez have? I'm guessing Lopez just has those 3 seconds. So, this could be potential here. All it would take is a couple more mistakes from Takubi here. Some more time penalties for Takubi, and it could shake up the order a little bit. We're on 5 to go now. We're headed to 4 for the Belgian to win his 4th Grand Prix of 2025A. We are approaching F1 25, but do not forget about the championship in the balance in 2024. Lap 32 of 35 this go around. Finn Baker dropping down the order. He's formed a battle here with Lewis Huchin for P6. The battle obviously rages on for P2 between Cameron Lopez and Oliver James as well, both of them pushing their absolute hardest, one on a hard, one on a medium. And now these two go ghosted as as the leader Maxime Van Averbeck catches them and is looking to be about to pass already. He'll have lapped everyone up to 6th. These two are fighting hard though. Just keep on their lead lap. Now the gap is 17 seconds between Takubi. That's Maxime Van Averbeck. And Cameron Lopez in P2. Just these two fight away as well for this P2 finish here. 3 laps to go for these two drivers. Who will come out on top? I believe regardless it's going to be Cameron Lopez, as I think I've seen Oliver James get more time penalties. But it doesn't hurt to see. Two to go this time for Maxime Van Averbeck, who has lapped those cars ahead of him. Lapped everyone from 6th on back. Right now, Cameron Lopez is defending for his life for P2. Fighting the McLaren of Oliver James. Oliver James down the inside on the hard tire. What can Cameron Lopez do? Can he get the switchback done through the Virage Senna? He can't. He's back on the power. They're going through this next chicane. It's going to be all about the corner exit here. Can they set up a pass into the next corner? Once again, not close enough. Alexander Lopez disqualified for all the penalties he's received. He'll drop back to the back of the pack. That is crazy. How does one get that many time penalties? Just a burp of the throttle there for Cameron Lopez. I'm thinking he didn't want to make that pass there. He wants to make it down the back stretch. Cameron Lopez said, "Fine, I'll let you have this." Gets on the power with a straighter line, and can he use the DRS in his advantage here? It does indeed seem that way. He basically's got the pass done even without DRS here. As now Cameron Lopez sweeps into the lead ahead of Oliver James. But don't forget, this is only for P2 because our race leader is 19.3 seconds up ahead. And now Oliver James stays tucked right behind Cameron Lopez. What will Oliver James do to get this P2 finish? What we do know is that when Maxime Van Averbeck crosses the start-finish line here, in just a few seconds, he'll be sitting on 176 points. A huge deficit as Oliver James spins and then resets to track. What can Ryan Messer do? Put himself in position here to take that podium on pace this time around. Can he do it? Maxime Van Averbeck crosses the line to take his 4th victory of the season, his 4th career victory, and extend his points lead. Cameron Lopez crosses the line to minimize the damage in P2. He'll pick up 18 points and keep that gap to only 39 points. Ryan Messer crosses the line, P3 over Oliver James, whose time penalties have him falling down the order to P5. Jamie Cavanini picking up that 4th place, and what a race for Nuclear Fusion Racing. 2 cars on the podium. It's the first time they've done that this season. A great result for these two drivers. 25 and 15, that's 40 points in the bank. That is the I believe, most anybody's had this season in a single race, because we've not seen a single 1-2 finish this season. In fact, this is the first time this season we've had two teammates on the podium not finishing second and third. What a race from Ryan Messer, who I agree with the game is the driver of the day here. Kept it clean, the only driver with no time penalties, and ultimately was rewarded for it at the very end of this race. Another great race from Maxime Van Averbeek. That'll put him up to 176 points, while Cameron Lopez will go from 120 to 138. The gap goes from 31 to 38 points between these two drivers in the championship. The gap between Maxime Van Averbeek and George Knight obviously gets much larger this go around. And as unfortunate as that is for George Knight, I think this will allow him to maybe take stock in next season at this point, because it does indeed appear to be over for the young Brit in this season after that event. Next week out, we're in the USA. We're going to skip driver interviews this week, as we have the winner being Maxime Van Averbeek, a very quiet guy, and honestly not much happened in this race, so we will conduct my actual favorite way of doing the driver interviews, which is text-based driver interviews, and then post the interesting tidbits via social media graphics. That is more exhilarating to me. So with that said, it's worth checking out our events scheduled for the following couple of days. Tomorrow, it's an off week, as the ARC Sports Car GT Challenge, I guess, ARC GT Challenge has been finished last week. Then Sunday, we have our first ARC Touring Car Challenge, or ARC Touring Car Cup race of the season. We visit both layouts of Brands Hatch on GT7. That'll be commentated and live here on our YouTube channel. Then after that, Tuesday, we have NASCAR Heat 5, which should be once again commentated. That's been going incredibly well this season. That one, you'll see that one from the high, or just not high banks, I was going to say high octane low banks of Gateway Worldwide Technology Raceway, and that will be commentated at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time. And then Wednesday, you'll see the ARC Late Model Tour visit, I believe, Martinsville for our first track that we share with the NASCAR series. Sorry, no, we go to USA International Speedway next time out on May 7th in that one. So plenty of racing, even with one down. You'll have plenty to watch on our YouTube channel this upcoming week, and we're very excited to have you guys join in and watch those things. Make sure to check out our sponsors, simleaguepro.com, if you want to run a racing league for an incredibly easy way, or in an incredibly easy way for an absolutely no fee, then that is the place you should go. And if you want to read some incredible motorsports articles written by fans of motorsport for fans of motorsport, check out dive-bomb.com for that. And finally, a special thanks to our modding partners, the Racing Rats, who create some incredible mods for our Assetto Corsa leagues to succeed, and really put their support behind us in what we create as a league. So thank you again for watching this week's installment of the ARC Formula One World Championship, and we will see you next week from the Miami International Autodrome in the United States for the ARC Formula One American Grand Prix.